And to say, many of our K through 12 Mississippi students are not educated on the civil rights movement.
Well, this is, now I'll talk from my head. They aren't taught any social studies. They don't even buy textbooks anymore. So that's a whole nother issue.
Right.
So that's why I touch on a lot of different topics in my class with my seniors and use a lot of different resources to try to teach them, okay, even if they don't give you a textbook, even if they don't give you a website, I'm going to arm you with a whole arsenal of tools to take into that classroom with you. And I want you to learn how to do it through literature. I want you to learn how to do it through videos. I want you to learn how to do it through Weekly Reader, Time for Kids, whatever resources you have. I want you to learn how to get that topic in. And I also want them to understand that once we start teaching it at a young age, by the time they get to us, like you're talking about, it's not a gloss over when you go over by the Lyceum and the James Meredith statue, because they've heard it so much in K-12. By the time they get here, they want to stop somebody and ask more questions or give more commentary on it, because they already know the history of it, and it hadn't been just glossed over, but it's been dealt with in an in-depth way where they come with understanding, and it's not up to us as instructors in college to give understanding. But one thing I wanted to touch on when you were talking about the students, I'm at the off-campus site. So my students, a lot of them are my age, some are older. So it's a different student. So that may be why you all pick it up one way and I pick it up as embarrassment, because they aren't trying to find themselves. They pretty much
they've done it.
Know who they are. They've been through it, and now they can look at it kind of critically. Our final question is why, and we've touched on it a little bit, so anything you want to add to this, you can. Why is it important for us, important for elementary education majors to integrate this topic into their instruction, especially in the wake of such present-day events surrounding civil rights? And this goes back to what you said with the first question, Barbara, about us not understanding that the civil rights movement should still be a movement, and it's not like we overcame and it's over with. But when you think of all the civil rights issues that we've dealt with in recent years, and I'm gonna go all the way back to Gina Six, Trayvon Martin, Jordan Davis, and now Michael Brown, and just the whole issue of the town and the people not being registered to vote, and now them putting off to 2015 to decide if the man murdered him. We have all of these civil and human rights issues going on right now. And even if we come to things that happen on campus, with them putting the noose around the James Meredith statue and different things that have happened over the years, why do we have to really express to our students the importance of teaching this at a very young age and continuing it through the thread of K-12.
And I do want to back up for a minute, because certainly you're coming from the lens of, you know, educating K through 12 students, but I think that we need to put it in the forefront of the college students who are going to go on to be educators, because I don't believe that that's a lens that they have. And so we can talk about distinctions between civil and human rights, but the truth is that on this campus and in the state of Mississippi and in various places all across the United States, we see the struggle of black people who fought for civil and human rights being replayed out with different populations. And we still won't get the story. We still will not. We still, although I do not have white privilege, my Christianity affords me great privileges in this space that people who are non-Christian don't have. And so I think it is imperative that our future educators and our future legislators and our future citizens understand and place themselves in the shoes, in the perspective of someone other than themselves, because even though it is 2014, the control, the power structure, and I'm not even talking about in the administration here, I'm talking about the control power structure that exists on this campus is still largely dominated by whites and white Greeks, not even all whites. So whether it is who is thought of as beautiful and gets elected homecoming queen, or, and this is one of my least favorite times on campus, it is the time when it's time to elect a homecoming queen or an ASB president, because it is the only time when a number of white students speak to everyone. Hi, how you doing? here's my sticker. I think it's a fiction for us to again, say that we have overcome. We have to teach people to be critical thinkers and look at things critically. And while the Jim Crow practices are no longer on the books, I still see those patterns existing inside and outside of the classroom. I still see black males jump off of the sidewalk, particularly when white female students in sorority gear are walking by in their rather entitled manner and taking up the whole sidewalk. So I think that there is so far to go, but unless we force people to confront their privileges, unless we force people to see things from the perspective of someone other than themselves, we won't get there.
Do you think the only way to do it is to force?
I think that because people are good, I truly believe, I don't think I could get up in the morning if I didn't believe. I love people, and I believe that people are good, and I believe that most people would do the right thing, but I also believe that ignorance is bliss, and most people choose to remain ignorant. Okay. It's a happy place to be, and it doesn't force you to do anything, because we like to believe that we're the person, if we see injustice, that we would speak up, that we wouldn't let someone be abused, and yet we do it every day. We do it in our classrooms, where we allow someone to snicker when the teacher is doing something that here people might consider daring and talking about homosexuality. We allow people to look and treat people with disrespect, or as if they might catch something just because they have a hijab on. There are all kinds of ways here that good and well-meaning people choose to remain ignorant. It's something that Jennifer Ritterhouse talks about in her book. So Dr. Stolman and I were discussing it the other day, and it's called Growing Up Jim Crow: How Black and White Southern Children Learned Race. And we learn ways we learn what the hierarchy is, even if we no longer speak in a language that people consider prejudicial, people consider judgmental. We learn.
It's just understood
now. It is understood.
The heart of this, right, is really, and this is the most important thing for your students who are listening to this or whoever's watching this, is that it is all of the tools, right? Listen, we'd love these things to be over-resourced, the teaching of civil rights plus the tools, but if we don't get the educators to critically self-reflect about their own anxieties, the ways in which they benefit, the ways in which it may impact their teaching, the ways in which they might get anxious while teaching it, right? It starts with the educator too. So what happens is you can present an educator. We do this on this campus. We present our educators with all of these tools, but because of their own anxieties about issues of race, and I mean, they very quickly get knotted up and cannot be an educator. And so then you get these free-for-alls where you have minority populations who are suddenly very, very threatened with good reason, who are shut down. You get some populations, white populations, who might feel entitled, who are also might get nervous. But that's the component that is before you go in. It's not enough to sort of, you really have to sort of feel the material. This isn't like teaching the War of 1812. This is about teaching about identity on top of historical events. And so if we send a well-intentioned, if someone looks like me, and she's 20-something or she's 30 or 40-something, and she goes in and she's doing exactly what Dr. Boyd has told her to do, she can still get in knots if she doesn't understand that the way that she's speaking about the civil rights history, the way she lifts up different populations, their contributions, the violence, the challenges, the ways in which they come together, may actually add an undesirable extra narrative. This is what happens. And this is why educating the educator is so crucial. Then our students and the K through 12, they're very good at these cues that we think are less obvious, but in fact they're more potent. So if I, for example, I'll give you I watched a student-teacher demonstration. I watched this person, because they always bring me in if it's either women, sexuality, or civil rights. And this one happened to be on civil rights. And the person who was teaching, a young white woman, she was well-intentioned, she was teaching, and didn't realize she was blocking the only African-American student while she was teaching. And so this isn't to say I want to block her. It was I'm nervous about this, so psychologically I am going to slide myself in front of her so that I don't feel like and I asked her about it, and she said, oh my gosh, I was nervous I would mess this up, and I used my body as a way not to see if I was messing it up. These microaggressions, and they're often unintentional. We've got to make sure that the educator doesn't do things like this. And the slaves, right, where we're looking at African American, so we're reifying this idea of inferiority, which is not, it's slaves, Africans or African Americans who happen to be enslaved, so that we don't, right? I mean, so it's really important that we get our educators to learn the linguistic or rhetorical styles that we use, the body cues, the eye language, the eye contact. I mean, all of these things, it's all of those narratives, because if a student can check out, if they get a single cue, because they're already uncomfortable with this narrative, if they get a single cue that it's unimportant, they're out. And that's, for me, that's crucial. And I have to, all of us have our own racial identity positions, and so your educators need to look in the mirror and see, what is it about me, about my privilege, my race, my class, my gender, my sexuality, my relationship to the material that's influencing how I teach it.
Well, and ladies, I know we could go on and on with this, but I appreciate you all, because I'm raising a 22-year-old or half-raised who wears a hoodie but sings opera and has sung on Broadway, but nobody would expect. And nobody would ask that if they saw him in a hoodie driving his car and pulled him over. And so I could go on and on and on with all of this with you all, but we have to bring it to an end.